Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 17. Today we are picking up right where we left off. If you recall, we had two big milestones to look forward to. One was the imminent completion of the steel mill, and the other was a similar situation with the rail tracks near the border. I'm happy to say, both of these will bear fruit in this episode. We will also continue working on upgrading the roads, but that will not be the main focus. Apart from setting up the deliveries for the steel mill, the biggest project today will be the expansion of Estergrad. We have people waiting for apartments, so we need to fix that. First things first, we have a small error to fix. I wanted to give power to this small coal pickup point, and I accidentally managed to leave a single conveyor tower without electricity, so we need to move the substation in order to accomplish both tasks. That should do it. And at long last, the steel mill is complete. In its current state, it will still require us to buy iron from abroad, but the resulting steel will be more than worth the effort. Let's start with 4 dumpers for those imports, and see if that's enough or not. Just need to be careful to only import processed iron, instead of raw iron ore. While it's a temporary freight line, I still told them to keep spacing. For such a line, I don't think it's really necessary, but I'm all about that uniformity. At least the coal supply is looking healthy. Once that power issue is sorted, we are good to go. Next on the agenda was the workers. Should be easy enough, just need some buses to ferry them over from Estergrad. After telling them to not go to the depot, we are pretty much done. And that's the coal supply dealt with. We already have iron, so we just need the workers now. And here they come. Yeah, it's a bit slow at the moment, but that was to be expected. We only have about 3,000 people living in the city right now, and they have a lot of places they can work at. But it's going to be a continuous production from here on out, so once things stabilize, we just might be able to stop importing steel altogether. We also need to tell the Kirkomov DO to start using the steel mill for its pickups, so it can prioritize domestic products. I thought about disabling imports altogether, but for now, I think I'll leave it on as a backup source, just in case. But we don't really need to overproduce, so we can safely set up a small export service for the excess steel we make. 20% fill rate on the open storage should be good enough, anything above that point can be sold off for profit. We really need to sort out the roads, so after placing some service connections, we can start upgrading to gravel at the very least. The most important part is the driveway. Once that's done, the rest can be upgraded as well, but we need to focus on that first. Thankfully, it was a long enough piece, so it could accommodate a bulldozer, instead of having to wait for workers to be brought in by bus. I don't really know why I decided to remove this service connection here. We will need to allow trucks to enter the mill for a little bit longer, so I will end up replacing it in a second. To hurry things up, we can add as many connections to the separate road segments as possible, so all of them can be worked on simultaneously, instead of having to wait for each segment to be finished one by one. And I finally remembered why that previous connection was there in the first place. There. Work in the steel mill can resume, while the roads are being upgraded. The next order of business was the completion of the rail track at the border. It's been a long time coming, so I wanted to be there when it happened. It should be finished with the next delivery. After the usual citizen happiness checkup, I noticed that some were complaining about the lack of childcare, so that will have to be sorted out pretty soon. But first, I wanted to fix the internal bus line. Right now, it was set to allow everyone to get on and off wherever they pleased. That wasn't very efficient. We need the workers to congregate in the main station, where they can catch a bus to workplaces out of the city. So they can get on at the tram stops, but they can only get off at the main station. Anyways, time to watch that last piece of track be built. At last, we have a clear connection between the rail CO and the border. Time to buy the EDK 300. It just needs to be sent over to the RCO, and it can start working on the tracks. Welcome back, you've been missed. I tried to prevent the older track layer from working, by telling it to stop inside the office, but it didn't really work in the end. Anyways, time to let them know that the entire rest of the rail network is open for construction. With the new EDK track layer, things will start progressing much faster. For now, I didn't want them to work on the branch going to the oil and coal processing. Let's get the main line and town distribution done first. And he's off. So much faster than the other one. With the roads around the steel mill finished, we can get rid of the unnecessary service connections. The buildings won't be built for a while, but might as well get the roads done. Same goes for the iron district. If we deal with the roads now, the eventual construction should be done a bit quicker overall. This is where it became apparent that the old track layer cannot be contained, and it will still try to leave the office, even though it was told to stop. For now, let's allow it to work on the tracks, and deal with it later. I wanted to start working on its eventual final resting place, which I decided will be along the roads going toward Estergrad, but none of the excavators were available, so it will have to wait. And we already see some pickups happening at the steel mill. This one will go to the rail construction office. That's 7,000 rubles we don't have to pay as import fees. Things were still balancing themselves at this point, so I decided to pass the time with a bit of tree planting, so the area around the mill doesn't look so barren. Just a small handful of trees here and there, no need for a dense forest. Something that I learned in the last series, sometimes less is more. We really need to work on getting more workers. This rate of production in the outer industries is getting a bit too slow, even for these early efforts. First, let's remedy that childcare situation. Next to the museum should be fine. It will make organizing road trips a bit easier for the kindergarten teachers. The next and most obvious way of expanding the workforce was of course new housing. Unfortunately, no bulldozers were available, so had to wait a bit more. Although we did have the excavators, those cannot work on leveling and smoothing the ground. But I knew that I wanted them for some other project, but couldn't remember what. Don't worry, I will remember eventually that we have a track layer memorial to do. But the bulldozers did manage to go home in the meantime, so we could start working on the new housing projects. This will be an extension of the existing trio of apartment blocks. For today, I decided to just deal with the ones being perpendicular to the roads, and for those, we needed to place some footpaths first. It's a bit of a steep climb on the footpaths, but if it can be built, then I'm happy. Good, we have 4 separate trucks heading to put out this fire. As I've said, today we will only deal with 2 new blocks, and do the rest as the need arises. Getting them to line up to the existing building was a bit fiddly, but the end result will be close enough to my eyes. I set both of them to be low priority, and I thought that would be enough to stall the construction enough, so I can sort out the walkability, but even with that, one of them will end up being built before everything was ready. The most important thing was to give them access to the different services. Adding a couple extra walkways should help with that. As usual, we are still struggling with money, so another loan was in order. At this point, it was all about getting more workers, so production in the money-making industries can be ramped up. To help out a little bit, we could add more buses to the steel mills commuter line. That will ensure that more of the workers make it there, increasing production. But first, let's name the lines with default names. Four more buses should do it. This will of course increase the consumption of the resources, so later on, we will have to increase the importing of iron as well. And I finally remembered why I needed those excavators. I wanted the track layer memorial to be raised above the surrounding area, so we needed them to do that part of the job. That looks good. Reasonably high, but not too much. We needed this hill to be running parallel to the road, so we can place the tracks on top. And this is how I imagined it. This section of track will be built by the small track layer, and once it's there, we just tell it to stop, and never allow it to leave again. Then we quote-unquote send it to a train depot, so it doesn't take up space in the rail CO, delete the tracks leading to the monument tracks, and that's that. As for the new houses, I even told them to stop using so many local workers, but even that won't be enough to stop one of them from being built too quickly. I really should have enabled the notifications. It won't be a big problem, but still, I need to be more careful. And since I was here, I decided to check on the loyalty, and our new radio station did a really good job at increasing it. It was high enough that we could increase the requirements for the moderators working in the building to 55%. Won't be long before it could be set even higher. There were a few of them with 60% loyalty, but let's not be too hasty. Employment seemed pretty stable, so I just left it at that. By lowering the immediate slope, it should allow a cleaner view of the track layer on top once everything's sorted. Next, we needed a temporary track leading to the monument. This will be deleted once it's all done and dusted. First, let's get the supporting infrastructure done, and then we can place the final track piece. Building that new kindergarten managed to take care of the little unemployment we had. But we need way more workers, so no rest for the wicked. Nice, 40 tons of steel waiting for pickup. Since it's more than a single truckload, that tells me that we pretty much stopped importing it at this point. I even went ahead and told the exporting DO to just go for it when it goes above 10%. About 100 tons is more than enough surplus at this point in time. We could also start building the bus stop at the iron mine. Once that's done, the rest of the road can be built, and then we can start working on the buildings themselves. I accidentally bought 2 buses, when I was going for dumpers. Small mistake, but not as egregious as it would have been only a couple months ago. Anyways, the reason for this new purchase was we needed more iron in the steel mill, so had to increase the imports. It was time to build the train depot next. Not really essential right now, but we still needed one to make the monument work as intended, so might as well get it out of the way. It didn't need access to the RCO itself. So it could be set to only send and receive trains to, and from, the direction of the main line. A plain and simple in and out pair of tracks will do the job. And thanks to the new and improved behavior of the track layers, it could be built, even without adding a turnaround. This will make rail construction a million times less headache-inducing. All that's left is to add a road, and we can let it build. Maybe a gravel road was a bit of an overkill, a dirt path might be enough, we only need a way in for fire safety after all. And there, the new house is built, even though I really needed to wait a bit to ensure access to everything it needed. And as it turns out, it lacks access to power. Thankfully, it's an easy fix, and people shouldn't get too annoyed with me while we sort it out. Just as an extra precaution, I did disable any further housing allocation for the time being in both buildings. The ones that got in too quickly will have to endure for a little bit. And with that, all the power connections in the city transformer are spent. Unless we do a bit of reorganization, we will need to build a new one pretty soon. And while analyzing the walkability of the house, it seemed to have access to most of the important services. It can reach the shopping center, the hospital, the basketball court, etc. The only thing it really lacks is a place of culture. This concert hall from Ukraine will be perfect. Plenty of room left behind it for another apartment block. With steel production up and running for a whole episode at this point, I really wanted to check our imports. Now that's what I call an improvement. Apart from 2 small purchases, we managed to eliminate the importing of steel pretty much completely. And as the number of citizens increases, this will only get better over time. I decided to not build the train depot just yet. We can use that track layer a little longer still, so we are not in a hurry to use more steel. But this moment of the 2 of them working together was screaming to be captured. Should make a good thumbnail too. Once that power line is done, we can open the apartments again. Thanks to the radio station, the culture can be somewhat dealt with using the airwaves, so having the concert hall built isn't as critically important. Seeing the excavator work its way past the football pitch, I was reminded that we still need to replant the bushes around it. I think the construction was interfering with one side, but the other one was more cooperative. Oh well, we can deal with it later. At least this temporary branch is underway. I noticed that it was using the concrete foundations for the tracks. Not a big deal for such a small project, but for temporary things, we should be careful to use cheaper alternatives. Alright, whenever we are ready to retire the old track layer, we have the branch ready. In fact, at this point we only really needed the train depot to be built. But as I've said, maybe we should keep using it, just a little longer. It's nowhere near as powerful as the EDK300, but it's still helping in small ways, which is admirable. What we need to focus on from now on is the expansion of the housing situation. I see no point in expanding the industries unless we have people to work in them, and right now, our biggest struggle is the workforce shortage. Which of course means we need to start building more services, and keep expanding the city of Estergrad. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, then leaving a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. If you are more in the donating mood, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description, where you can buy me a glass of water. I don't really drink coffee. Thank you for your support, and until next time, I will see you later.